It's like March Madness for flying.
Yeah, 6, Tower, hold trip, runway, trip, hold short of 18, that's 6. Yeah, 6, Tower, hold trip, runway, trip, hold short of 18, that's 6.
We use competition to make people better. You can ask any senior judge in this organization, the more work you put in, the better your results are going to be. Hi, my name is Marty Coker.
I'm Greg Robbins, Glenn McConnell.
Richard Meekole.
Kent Lovelace.
Nick Kellogg, Johnny Ginley.
And my name is Taylor Newman, and I started with NIFA, the National Intercollegiate Flying Association, in 1993. Competed for 3 years, graduated, then they suckered me back as a judge, and I've been here since.
Designated golf turn left at Alpha 2 on contact ground. Good day.
Flight team is very similar to track and field. Everybody has individual events, but competes as a team. And
It really is just a culmination of each of these individual events that they're going to be a better pilot at, and ultimately then goes to the total team goal. We have ground events, we have flying events that are all aimed to sharpen the skills of these aviators and these college students much more above and beyond than what they're doing in the classroom.
We see a lot of people that played competitive sports or they were in competitive something in high school, and that's not going to happen in college, or they play club sports in college but they have extra time. That competitive spirit and drive, that's the sort of student that we seem to attract.
Well, it seemed like the most intense and competitive club or team on campus, and that's something that I really wanted to be a part of. And I tried out and made it, and it's just been up and up ever since then.
NIFA is obviously safety and excellence and a wonderful competition, but to me it's a friendly competition. And Lovelace, I came in second to him 5 times. Second to UND 5 times in about a 10-year period. So I jumped in the front seat of the van on the way over so I could beat him at something. So Lovelace and I go way back, and I admire him and his program very, very much.
To sum it up in one word is community, and it is a community that builds off the competitive aspect in what we do, but it ultimately is for the betterment of the entire aviation industry. During competition week, we're all allies, we're all friends, but we're all competing to be the best. At the end of the day, though, we go home, they graduate, they go sit in the cockpit with someone else that they competed with a few years prior.
It's like March Madness for flying. It's the collegiate aviation version of March Madness. Some kids aren't even flying, they're not even pilots. They just happen to be, maybe in the engineering program at their school, and so they're really good at math. I've talked to kids that they're management students. They know the regs really well, or they know airplanes really well because there's, an event for aircraft recognition. So there's various events for different people other than just being a professional pilot.
How do I differentiate myself? When you get to, I wasn't on the flight team, I'm a national competitor and I'm a national winner.
We as flight safety think this competition is so powerful because it's fostering that striving for excellence, not just settling for mediocre, not just settling for good enough. Good enough is never good enough.
And as the great Ricky Bobby once said, if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, 6, Tower, hold trip, runway, trip, short of 18, that's 6.
NIFA goes back as an organization into the 50s as a specific organization. We had one air meet a year. It was a national competition. All schools that were members could come. In the mid-70s, we went to the regional system where schools competed in a regional competition, and then from there they were invited to the national competition.
When you explain NIFA and SAFECON, what do you tell them?
Well, I tell them humbly, it's where the best of the best come.
Because, it starts out with between 70 and 80 schools where they have their regional competitions. Usually the top 3 schools from each region then make it for the spring event. It's the best of the best schools and kids that come together and compete and have some fun.
There are currently 9 regional competitions, all held in the fall prior to the national competition in the spring. And this year we have 28 teams here at nationals.
My name's Nick Cleffinger. I'm a senior at Minnesota State University Mankato. We like to think about it in individual events instead of as a mass. We'll worry about the mass when the banquet comes around, you know. But I think some of our events will be sitting top 10. At regionals, we took 3rd. That was pretty good because, you know, UND took 1st. That's how it always works. So you just expect that every year.
I think it's always a toss-up. Hi, my name is Blake Nahan, and I'm a senior at the University of North Dakota. Generally, we seem to be pretty strong in the ground events. Yeah, it's probably going to be Embry-Riddle Prescott. Yeah.
I'm George Fiskew, the Golden Eagles flight team from Embry-Riddle Prescott. We've won 14 national championships.
Part of the reason we come here is to build upon that legacy that other teams in the past have created.
My name is Claire Reeder. I'm a senior at Oklahoma State University. I think for us it's about being a part of something that's a lot bigger than yourself, that came here before you and that will be here after you're gone.
If they all perform to their natural abilities that they've grown into, then our team will be successful.
I'm Reagan Hess. I'm from the University of Central Missouri.
United States Air Force Academy.
Liberty University.
LaTourneau University.
Louisiana Tech University.
The University of Nebraska, Omaha.
My name's Luke Russo.
And I'm at NIFA SAFECON 2023.
There's a ton of planning that goes into it, at least from a coaching perspective. From a student perspective, now it's cramming time, right?
Yeah, 6, tower, hold trip, runway 18, traffic, we'll start at 18, that's 6.
I think every school kind of structures how they do their flying teams differently. I think most of the competitive schools are going to have scheduled practice. It may or may not be kind of co-located with a class or some course structure, but either way, you're going to see somewhere between 8 and maybe as many as 24 or 30 hours per week dedicated to any one ground event or any one flying event to become super competitive on the national stage.
It's a lot of time that gets put in. I mean, when you look at the practices we have, on Sunday, they start at about 10 or to 11, depending on the day, depending on what event we're practicing, and it can run. Also, depending on weather, it can run as late as 4 or 5 in the evening.
So there's 3 ground events, right? You have CA, you have aircraft rec, and then you have scan.
I would say for me, it's computer accuracy. Yeah, so the event, it's a ground test, so a written test, and it's with math related to aviation. So your time, speed, distance, course correction, that type of math that you can do on an E6B, which is what some people call the whiz wheel.
So, like most people, I'm not very good at aircraft recognition, so I see an airplane and I'm like, big airplane, small airplane. There are some people that just are really good at that, and they can look at an airplane's like landing gear or part of the wing or just some of the engine and say, I know exactly what airplane that is. In the real world, when we're flying into an airport, maybe it's like an international airport or something that you're not familiar with, you have airliners coming in, but there's also smaller regional jets, and it's helpful to know those. And then there's our little airplanes that we would fly, so just knowing those differentials can help us know how we can sequence.
Codename Mike Charlie, turn left at Alpha 3 and come to ground. Alpha 3 over to ground.
Scan event is a VFR planning event where there's questions on aircraft performance, legality of pilots and aircraft, regulations, questions on aerodynamics and weather. So it's any information that we would expect or the FAA would expect a private pilot to know, and then we usually ratchet that up to a degree of challenge. So the aircraft pre-flight event is an aircraft that is intentionally bugged with squawks or discrepancies.
So usually they do just some random plane, so it'll be like some random guy's Bonanza or something, and the guy's like, do whatever you want. It's just how it always is.
It's a really unique event. They take an airplane, they bug it with up to 30 discrepancies, maybe more, but at minimum 30. And you have up to 15 minutes to find as many possible.
But you're in a dark hangar, so you only have a flashlight, so you can't see the whole thing, so it makes it difficult.
And the idea being that a private pilot should be able to pick out things that are wrong with the aircraft just through the course of a normal pre-flight that they would do. They get awarded points for the number of squawks or discrepancies that they find, and so the highest total wins in that event.
When I was competing, we were very fortunate. Our faculty advisor, coach, was actually an A&P, which at that time, most of the flight schools that we were competing with, all of their advisors, they were flight operations people. They weren't from the A&P side. And so our advisor, every weekend, he would take the time and take an airplane and set it up just like an event. And so it would be from switching the lights, the red and green, reverse wiring, safety wire, just clipping cotter pins. And we would spend, a good part of the weekend, and he'd do that Saturday and he'd do that Sunday afternoon. And he'd put some serious time into it. So you feel really confident going into it, just like an athlete of practicing, whether you're hitting something or shooting baskets, it's that muscle memory. And I think that played a lot into doing well.
Our general expectations here are that the crew is able to fly the aircraft to ACS. However, it's not about operating that aircraft in particular. It's about operating an aircraft safely through the flight and the challenges presented.
6, Tower, hold trip runway, traffic contact. We'll start at 18, now 6.
Kent Lovelace. I'm appointed as kind of the historian to the NIFA Council. I've been involved with the National Intercollegiate Flying Association since 1975, so I've been around it a long time.
How was it organized? What schools participated?
Well, it was organized similar to what we have today. I mean, there wasn't as many ground events. There was more flying events comparatively. But we still had like the computer accuracy event, the aircraft recognition event, the pre-flight event, and then the landings and the navigation event. What's transpired over time is we've added some additional events that kind of coincide with the demands of the industry.
That was 1972, and it was called the Instrument Proficiency Event. And really the reason is the same today as it was back then, is to get the competitors to focus on increasing their accuracy. The ultimate goal when they do that is they'll be safer pilots.
The first is the ground trainer event, which is testing the aircraft performance and control.
We found a pattern from 1972, and that was the manual scoring back then. And then what happened this year is the judges actually created the same pattern as 1972, but it's computer scored now. So it's kind of a neat throwback using something that's that many, 51 years old.
There's also the IFR sim event.
So the IFR event is sort of a scripted, simulated instrument flight in the clouds, where you're relying solely on your instrument in a Frasca-provided RTD, and you take off from an airport, fly a departure procedure, and intercept a Victor radial, a highway in the sky, down to an approach at an airport to land in instrument conditions.
So the first simulator event was in 1972, and in that case it was done manually. So the judges would actually watch the competitor. They would have a little clipboard and they would measure how often they're off on airspeed. Today what we do is we actually run it through a computer scoring program. So from a judge perspective, all I do is hit go.
And the final event, the CRM Loft event for simulators.
The CRM Loft event is an event where each team has the ability to send one crew, and their goal is to complete a simulated line flying trip from point A to point B. It's done in a crew, a two-person flight simulator.
It tests your IFR skills and obviously crew resource management skills to work together and overcome any obstacles that you encounter during the flight and demonstrate kind of your proficiency in that area. It's an event that can really help prepare you for the airlines. A lot of the training that the airlines do is kind of what this event is based upon.
So they give you a scenario. You're taking these passengers from this airport to this airport, here's your weather, and then they give you a company and they say, okay, your company's policies are whatever they are for that flight.
And this is a higher level event. It is an event where 2 pilots have to be here. Both must be instrument rated. We prefer they both have multi-engine ratings, although it's not mandatory. But the big expectation is that they be able to work together as a crew and handle the threats and the challenges that are put in front of them over the course of the flight.
We have flying events that are all aimed to sharpen the skills of these aviators and these college students much more above and beyond than what they're doing in the classroom.
Yeah, 6, Tower, hold trip runway 18, traffic on 5. Hold short of 18, that's 6.
What's really unique about this kind of competition, unlike other collegiate competitions, is we have one regional and then we have a national. And each of those regionals have had different flying conditions. So you don't know, it's not like a football team that every week they can go back and look at tapes of how another team's performing. You go into competition totally blind.
It comes to 6:45 wake ups, getting to the airport at about 7:30, trying to figure out who's flying which heat, which plane we're behind, if the planes have fuel.
So the first one is a navigation event. It's a VFR cross country.
And so there's unlimited and traditional. Traditional is straight paper sectionals, do it the old school way. Unlimited is use whatever you want, everything online.
The whole point of it is to use, pilotage and dead reckoning and really hone in on those skills.
So what we do is create 3 different routes. We're also looking at, in between those points at some distinguishing landmark feature and giving that to them and saying somewhere along your route you'll find these pictures, and then you tell us where those are.
The navigation event's a little more academic, in terms of because you got to apply your planning and so forth. Well, with you, it's probably landings, right?
It is landings.
Yeah.
We have 2 landing competitions, one power off approach and landing and one short field approach and landing.
I think the Power Off 180 competition has made me a better pilot by just requiring me to plan my altitude and airspeed management further out. I have to really think ahead of the airplane.
We have judges stationed at each point in the traffic pattern, looking for clean patterns, wind tracking on all the legs.
Coming into it, you'd think, especially with like the ACS, a lot of people think, oh, this target box is 300 feet wide. Most people here are private commercial pilots. Isn't that like ACS standards? But if you take into account some of the penalties and the fact that on short fields, you can't add power back in. So once you've taken that power out, if you add it back in, that's 200 points penalty. So you're kind of just out of the running at that point.
Stuff that's going on over there that might be kind of like insider stuff that you really don't, the stuff you don't know unless you know because you've been here, and like little things and like painting the tires, for example. Like when I first got here, I'm like, couldn't these guys get better tires? And then you come to realize that they paint the tires so it's easier for the judges to see the tires start spinning when it hits the line and everything. And so I basically said it's the equivalent of like eye black or in football.
I believe at regionals, our best event was message drop, which is our favorite event. So that is always fun to be able to drop stuff out of the planes.
That competition, pretty much, you have one pilot flying and one pilot dropping. You will take off, you'll fly in the pattern, you'll overfly the field at a pretty low altitude. Pilot flying will guide the airplane laterally over the 2 targets that you have to drop on, and then the dropper will kind of give him guidance on which side to go so you're lined up with the buckets.
Some teams wear like costumes and stuff. It's kind of like Friday, the fun day, the end of competition, where the teams just come out, have fun, but also take it seriously because you do get points at competition.
Every team kind of has a different way of doing it. Some people will like to stick their whole head out the window and they'll take their headset off and There's gonna have like air blowing on their face and everything. I know Cody likes to go up with goggles, get a better view.
There's a lot of dumb things that happen on message drop, but it's a fun event. One of our guys during message drop, he took his headset off and stuck his head out the window because he was trying to see the target, and these came flying off his face, and he dropped these instead of the actual message drop thing.
Grayson, have you ever hit anybody's car with a message drop container?
Oh yeah, I have hit a car with a message drop container.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so.
We have one guy who is wearing goggles from like World War II, like the fighter pilot goggles, and he's gonna stick out and use those.
One of our team members, she is really good at it, and she does have goggles like that Snoopy pretty much wears.
But we also had one of our competitors wearing a cheese head, Drew Robinson, and that was kind of just to celebrate being up here in Oshkosh.
The message drop event, sponsored by Dynamic Aviation, and presenting this evening is going to be Megan Danis and Parker Nichols, if you would please come forward.
If you want to win nationals, you have to do well in both ground events and flying event.
And winning this year's SAFECON Championship Trophy with a combined score of 451 points, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Preston.
6 Tower, hold trip runway, traffic contact. We'll start at 18,
You know, the community that we create as part of the flight team ends up being something that most of these students want to be a part of. For as long as they can.
Joining the team was amazing, and I got to go to nationals my first year as a freshman, which was really cool. And just then seeing it, it was like that adrenaline rush, and you just want to keep doing it again.
If they all perform to their natural abilities that they've grown into, then our team will be successful.
There's a big feeling in the team that coach is willing to do anything for us to make sure that we're successful. And I would never doubt that in a million years.
Winning this year's Ground Events Championship Trophy with a combined total of 217 points, University of North Dakota.
The industry is very aware of NIFA. I've had many industry airline interviewers basically say, if I see NIFA on the application, that just means that they put in so much extra effort, because it is a lot of preparation to come here, a lot of early hours, a lot of late hours.
Every single job I've had has been due to a connection with NIFA.
It's just not the competitiveness, but it was that team environment that really I had been used to all my life of playing competitive sports, that when that ended, it was like gone. And now here it was this flight team that kind of filled all of that for me.
They're having the best time of their life. I just watched the camaraderie, the other students coming over and talking to us from other schools. As a parent, I'd love to see my daughter, you know, grow her aviation career, whether it's with the airlines, cargo. This entire event is impressive, and I'd be more than happy to have my daughter compete at this event because of the safety, the organization, and the people involved.
This is gonna make me cry.
Because you'll feel like you're part of the family. Oh my God. And that you will be with some of the best people you'll ever meet. And it's just a much better feeling than, you know, a school where you're a number. You don't feel like a number, you feel like you're part of a family.